Radio.com program at 5 o'clock on this Thursday, May 21st. Tomorrow, we're with you on a Friday as we usher in what will be the most unusual Memorial Day weekend of our lives, as we've been living through really the wildest spring of our life. It will continue as we hit the Memorial Day weekend. Won't be your typical Memorial Day weekend, although there will be beaches open. We'll see how that all works out. It's not going to be very warm, though, anyway. It really isn't. I mean, people will flock to the beaches because they're open, but it's not going to be, from what I saw. Today is a nice day. I mean, really nice day, but much warmer than yesterday. But not going to be beach weather. I mean, tomorrow is 67, Saturday 64, Sunday 66. Monday, 66. 66 is not beach weather. First of all, the water's freezing. It's freezing in May anyway. You know, you want to jump in the water and then, water at this time is in the low 60s in May in the Northeast. It gains about a degree a day at this time of year, but if the weather's warm. But the weather has not been warm. It's been about 10 degrees under normal, and 65-degree days is not exactly beach weather. But, hey, the way things are gone, you want to get out of the house and go. All right, we got a couple things to get to today. We'll have guests, a couple of guests today, as a matter of fact. We'll do some basketball with the Nets' Tim Capstraw in a couple minutes with the AC at 6. There's a lot of little things going on about a bunch of different sports. Let me get to a couple things here first. I'll save the basketball for when Tim comes on. Football. First of all, Pat Dye, I want to send a word to the venerable 80-year-old Pat Dye, who's in the hospital. He has the virus. They say it's not doing a lot of damage, but he has some other ailments, so he is in the hospital as a precaution. He does have he's hospitalized in Atlanta. He's 80 years old. So Pat Dye, the legendary Auburn coach, is in the hospital with the virus. So we wish him well. I know Pat fairly well. He's very very tough, rugged, old-time football coach. Did a great job at Auburn all those years. And he's 80 years old and is fighting the virus right now. College football, the report came out that the Power 5 programs will lose about $62 million per school at the current rate. $4 billion in revenue would be lost this season if they play without fans, because you're talking about stadiums that in a lot of places hold up to 100,000 people. There are plenty of them that hold over 80. There's 4 or 5 that hold over 100. Ohio State, as an example, says their stadium is so large, it's 102,000 seats, that they think they can, if they play, put, even socially distancing, they can put 25,000 people in the building. And if they relax the what is required at all, they think they could put 50,000 in the building. And the old horse show in Columbus, we'll see how that works out. We don't know if college football is even going to be played this year. But college football is so adamant about playing, and they said the damage that would be done to all athletic programs of the power schools, they want to get the season in. Even if they don't begin the season to January and they play it all spring, they would be in for that rather than to cancel the season. They would be in to cancel, only play conference games if that's what they have to do. They want to play college football, so we'll see if they can try to do it. The NFL is trying to get things opened and get things uniforms. Right now, what we do know is that they have received, team owners will be asked to vote on proposals during a virtual meeting on May 28th. There's booth, umpire, and technology advisor proposals that were not endorsed, so they're not likely to be permanent in any way. There will be some preseason experiments done in those regards, but they won't be moved into the regular season. Coaches have been lobbying for help. They're looking for new ways to improve officiating. They like the idea of adding basically a sky advisor who would be someone who would work with the referee. We know that the 1 year pass interference thing is going away, which is a good thing. So they'd like to get to a point where they have a eye in the sky that is a guy who just will buzz to the referee when he says, "Hey, we need to clean this play up," or "Let's look at this play together," or "There's something going on here." So that is something that there is a lot of momentum for. We'll see how it goes. Also, there is an idea that was proposed by the Eagles that would be used in lieu of the onside kick. Now, how about this? In lieu of the onside kick, instead of kicking off after a score, when you're down late in the fourth quarter, a team would have the option for one offensive play from its 25-yard line. Okay? If it gains 15 yards on the play or more, it retains possession. If it doesn't, the ball goes over to the other team. So that's your way of gaining another possession. Instead of the onside kick, which last year was such a low number because they changed the blocking rules. They made it very, very hard for you to gain the onside kick. So the play is you got the ball on the 25-yard line. You have to gain 15 yards on the play, and then it's your ball. If you don't, the opposing team takes over right there, like they would on an onside kick. Not a bad idea. Now, the owners rejected this plan in the past, but it's gaining momentum because the recovery rate on onside kicks has been down to 10%. From 2001 to 2017, it was 20%. It's down to 10.5%. So there is a thought that could happen. Okay, so you know what? Maybe that would happen. Not a bad idea. You know they're going to change the loophole that the Pats and the Titans both showed last year when they fooled with the clock. The idea of using dead ball fouls to run the clock down. You're not going to be able to do that this year. You saw Tennessee do it to the Pats in the playoff game. You saw the Pats do it to other people. What happened is Belichick showed it, and then they stole it. Vrabel stole it and used it against the Pats, and you're not going to be able to do it. So there'll be some changes in replay as far as how expansive replay will be. There'll be no pass interference rule, and there is some process to it. Although it's not going to happen probably this year, there'll be some thoughts towards the eye in the sky being permanent. You know, that whole plan. So we'll see. There's still some things that have to be amended about that too, okay? There's also been talk about proposing. There was a thought of proposing putting the overtimes in the regular season back to 15 minutes, but that's not happening. So there had been talk that was going to be proposed. It's not. So we still have some subtle changes that are going to be made, but the onside kick one, I have to listen. Here's the bottom line. They have to figure out something to use instead of the onside kick because they want to take the kickoff out of the game. They can't take the kickoff out of the game because there's no alternative to the onside kick. How do you get the ball back late in the game? You need to be able to get the ball back as a mechanism when you're down late and you're down a lot of points to get the ball back late in the game when you score. So here is a play in lieu of it. It's not crazy. It's not a bad idea. I've given it some thought. It's not a terrible idea. It really isn't. And think about it. You get the ball on the 25. You got one play. You got to gain 15 yards. Your odds on that play, on a one-play, 15-yard play, they're probably figuring they're about 15%. You know, right around there. A 4th and 10, 4th and 12 play would be about 15%. So you're talking about a 4th and 15 play, one play, 15 yards to keep the ball. You know what? It's about the same as shooting an onside kick right now. And an onside kick has just gotten to be such a bad play for the offensive team. It's just not worth it because they just can't recover them the way they set it up. Now they just can't recover them. So this, I think, offers more than that did. So because they've taken all, and let's be honest, they want to continue to amend the rosters, and they want to take the injuries out of the kicking game. They want to take it out of the kickoff. They don't like the kickoff as a play anyway. And the only reason they've kept the kickoff in is because of the onside kick. And now they think they've come up, or at least they will introduce. We'll see how much emphasis they have behind it. Considering the way the onside kick has gone and how tough it is to achieve one, I don't think this is a bad idea. I really don't. I kind of think that they should take a look at this either. And I don't think a preseason gives you enough of an advantage to look at it, because even in late in preseason games, there's no personnel on the even in the one game that's a real game, which is game 3. There isn't anybody left in the game when you'd be in onside kick time. So there's no way to really look at that except going on this premise. Put it in for a year and let it happen, and let's see what it looks like. They can always amend it and take it out after 1 year. The problem is you got to leave the kickoff in that year, because if you want to go back to the kickoff, you're not going to want to do that, because you're going to have to change the personnel a little bit if you go back to the kickoff. So you don't want to do that. So they're going to leave the kickoff in while they look at this, and maybe take a look at it for a year. And in a real year where you got enough games and enough times where you can use a team late in the game with full personnel, because looking at it in the preseason just offers nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because of the fact that you don't even have personnel in the game late. Either way, you want to see first-team offense versus first-team defense, game on the line. That's when you want to study this thing for a year or two. I'd even say 2 years just to get a real feel for it, because you're not going to get that many opportunities for it in 1 year. But let's be honest, it can't be worse than 9.5 or 10.5% on the onside kick. And if it works, it allows them to take the kickoff out of the game, which is something they've wanted to do anyway. So from that standpoint, I think it's okay. I would at least look at it. All right, when we come back, we'll talk some basketball with Tim Capshaw right after this. Talk some basketball with Tim Capshaw. We welcome him in right now. Tim, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing okay, Mike. How about you?
All right. How you been spending your days?
A lot of Zoom meetings, clinics, watching a lot of basketball clinics. I have a young daughter who's a basketball player. I've rebounded a lot of shots, stuff like that. It has been a wonderful time as far as education, as making the most of this downtime. Every coach from every walk of life has been presenting on Zoom, and it has been a fantastic way to improve your knowledge.
What do you think? You know, I don't think I've talked. I talked to Patino when he took the Iona job, and once since then, because he and I own a couple of horses together. I'm trying to think if I talked. I think I talked to Jay Wright once, but I haven't talked to that many college basketball coaches to see how their life has changed. What do you think the biggest adjustment has been for them this year?
Oh, everything, like everybody else, but even at a higher level, in different level, I think a lot of them had to readjust some of their, certainly right now, some of their recruiting. They've got to do it like football people. Football people have to make a living making decisions off of video. And I think that's what basketball people have had to do right now, or getting ready for this summer with so many things up in the air. That the video, the understanding, watching, breaking down possession by possession, certain players, because you're going to make commitments and decisions on players that you may not see live, or you may have to make decisions right now because these players want to make decisions because they don't know exactly what their summer plans will be.
All right, NBA. Tim, of course, does the Nets and has been doing that for many, many years, and is a former coach. From a coaching standpoint, what about the rules? Now, the rules for every one of these sports, when they're talking about somehow practicing some safe play, almost seem foolish. I mean, they almost seem like, why bother? I mean, even in baseball, which has got some advantages, it even sounds like, why bother? What are the things in basketball that you think, from a standpoint of just playing the game on an ordinary level, is going to be the hard part?
Well, It is going to be certainly interesting and challenging. And yet, I do think with basketball, first of all, you don't have so many players. You don't have that big of a roster.
Do you think the players will play with abandon? Do you think they will, or do you think they'll be cautious?
I think they'll play with abandon. I think they'll play. Once they throw it up, they'll play. But they're not going to play if they're not tested.
Right. They're going to be tested, of course, yes.
Think of it, the NBA has unbelievable trust in their leadership, whether it be Adam Silver.
Right. They have a great relationship with the hierarchy of their league. Absolutely.
Yeah, Michelle Roberts, even Chris Paul is the president right now.
Right.
There is an enormous. The NBA has. That is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
The leadership of this league from the get-go, from the moment they closed it down on March 11th, it was decisive. It was leadership. This is what we're going to do. In fact, in a lot of ways, I feel like a lot of the country followed the NBA. And I think that is what the NBA has going for it right now. These players trust owners, trust the commissioner. The governors of the league trust the commissioner. Michelle Roberts, the executive director of the Players Association. There is a lot of trust. When they throw it up, Mike, they're going to play.
I think they do have an advantage. Baseball's got the worst relationship. Football's isn't great either. I think basketball, there is a high level of trust between players and owners and players and their commissioner. And their commissioner has become one of the real leaders in America because he was the first one to do anything. I mean, so he is a guy who's got obviously a very good bully pulpit to perform from. But you're right. There still has to be a feel that testing is good and that their environment has been protected, and that's going to be tricky to do. Even in the one place fits all, and it's not as many players, and you're not going to travel them around. It's still not an easy thing to try to secure that environment.
No, I think everybody would agree with that, but you're also going to do the best you possibly can, and I think there's a trade-off. There's some real decisions that have to be made. And the other thing about the trust factor is that if there's any question about this, then the player safety will come first, whether it be from a physical standpoint of taking their time to get back to playing real games, or obviously with anything to do with COVID-19, that the players, they're going to do as much as they possibly can. And, hey, by that time, each week, each month, each couple of weeks right now, it seems to be progressing more and more. But people are getting out there now. They're going out, and it's getting tough to hold people back. Listen, the environment might not be perfect, but it's probably as good as you could do. Keeping in the same area. It's almost like an AAU tournament. These guys will have flashbacks to their AAU days. They'll be at Disney. They'll be playing probably at different times of the day. They might have a practice somewhere else. I think there are obviously going to be safety concerns, but again, I think it's the trust that the players have, and I think they're going to do as best they can. And I think there's a real optimism that this is going to go forward.
Oh, I think it's going to happen. Listen, I think a couple of things. One, I think these teams in every sport, baseball especially, but in the other sports too, they'd like to complete their season. Baseball would like to start their season, but they'd like to complete their seasons, number one, and crown a champion. But I think they also feel they owe something to society, and they owe something to their TV partners who they're trying to help, and they also want to make the revenue. So there's a lot of reasons for the whole thing to happen. It's a fascinating, whatever they decide on finally, the losers bracket, which is going to be fascinating, or what teams do that are in particular places. I mean, no team is in the more interesting place than the Nets, because the Nets could come back with a different team here. I mean, and not only that, come back with one of the great players in the world. So that's the first question that gets answered. I mean, is what happens with Durant?
Well, don't know for sure, but all indications are no, he's not going
to play. I mean, so you don't think there's any chance? Or you think? What do you think? You think it's out?
I think that's what I think he's out. Yes, I think that is the word coming from the Nets, and I think he's entitled to change his mind if he feels good. But right now, and I think 99.9%, Mike, he's not playing this year.
Okay. Now, with that out of the way, what do you think is a reasonable time for players to be ready to play basketball at a high level?
I think it's got to go into July a little bit. I think they've got to bring them back. I think physically guys have obviously been doing stuff right now, and they will be able to. I think they're going to have to quarantine when they get back. They're going to have to get players back from Europe in early June. Quarantine time. Then they're going to be able to do some individual skills for a little bit of time, and then 2-3 weeks till they start playing at least. I think I've heard some things mid July, maybe a little bit earlier than that, and I think that's the one thing. I think Adam Silver and everyone would be really upset if they thought they rushed players back. They can't control the virus right now, but they can be intelligent about bringing back. I mean, they're going to control, obviously, the best they can, but they don't know everything about that. They do know an awful lot about the physical capabilities of athletes, and they want to be slow and smart and make sure they don't put anybody in harm's way as far as injury.
It's going to remind some of these players about the days when, and most of them probably were in one of those kind of like, ABCD camps, where they, where there were games going on every court. I mean, that's what it's going to seem like for these guys, right? It's going to be a flashback to when they were, 10th graders.
Forget it. A couple of the guys, it's 2 years ago. 2 weekends. They're playing AAU games. Think about it, Mike. Think about what's going to be going on in July. You're basically playing summer league with NBA players.
Yeah.
The summer league would be going on in Vegas. This would be going on in Orlando. Obviously, different things going on, but it is much like AAU, but they will not play 4 games in 2 days. That's for sure. The NBA will be smart as far as spacing out the games, but the controlled environments will be something where they'll be able to have access to courts, because I don't know if you've ever been down there, but certainly been down to Disney for exactly with that, AAU tournaments. And they have 12 courts. I'm sure they're modifying them. They got to make some of them maybe a little bit bigger. But certainly teams will be able to practice all the time also when they're not playing.
We're talking with Tim Kaufshaw as the NBA starts to slowly make its way back, like everything else is trying to make its way back, one step at a time, a little bit at a time here. What format that you've seen? I mean, it sounds like they're zeroing in on one site. There had been talk of 2 sites. Now there's talk of one site. What format would you prefer? Do you have one you like of the ones you've heard?
What's funny? Remember during the beginning of the year that there were meetings going on with the NBA people and commissioner and the like, and he was talking about, something, we've got to maybe adopt some of this European in-season tournament kind of attitude and approach to our game, maybe create a little more interest. I don't think he thought this was going to go on, that it'd have to create his own
So you
tournament.
like this losers bracket thing? You think that works?
I like things like that. I think it's not going to be the same. Make it as interesting, as entertaining, involve as many teams as possible, and let them play, because fans want to see it, and I think it's going to be great. I mean, first of all, there's such a thirst for sports right now, but I think even like camera angles and the view of the game and how up close and personal it's going to be for fans. I think it's going to be interesting. I also think it's going to be an opportunity maybe for some innovation as far as some technology things or some camera angles. I'm looking forward to see exactly what's going to go on.
Normal basketball players, young basketball players, who you've been around your whole life, they have to get used to playing in front of big crowds. They're not used to playing in front of crowds. Now they have to get used to not playing in front of big crowds. I mean, playing in empty arenas that may echo a little bit, or you hear the squeak of the sneakers, and guys calling instructions out and the like. Do you think that impacts the players at all?
I think it could. I'm sure it could take away some advantages. There's certainly teams that might have a home court advantage in a playoff situation. That will negate that. But I think again it will be interesting. It will be fun to listen to. I think that you might have to be a little cautious listening with your kids at times.
Right.
But I think that just the overall attitude approach. When I watch practice in NBA, these guys. It's fascinating just to watch great athletes compete. To watch it a little bit different in a different environment. And again, I think the angles of the camera. I think things are going to be closer. I think it's going to be fun. And again, it's a lot better than what we got now. It's frustrating now for fans not to have sports. They're going to be thirsty for it, and the NBA is going to be going quickly into playoff situations. So that's even going to add to it. On a neutral site, I think it's going to be terrific.
Do you think it is important that the NBA finishes the season, or do you think everything would be fine and they start up another season, knowing this year is that all is forgiven everywhere, so that no one's going to hold anything against anybody? Do you think it is important still for them to get a champion this year, or do you think they could just start up next year and it wouldn't and they'd hit the ground running?
No, I think because they feel they can get it done right now. I think a month ago, maybe I thought 5-6 weeks ago, everybody was like, "Hey, this is all about safety. This is all about let's not be worried about basketball or anything." But I think the tide has turned, and I just feel that I think in everybody's interest, I think everybody wants a champion this year. They want to be playing basketball. I think players want it, fans want it. The NBA again is I think creating an environment where safety will be of the utmost importance and can be done logistically. I think everybody wants to do it. So why not? I think they got to go. They're going to go after it, and I think it's going to be terrific.
And especially LeBron James doesn't want to give up any more chances. He doesn't want to give up a chance to win a championship. He doesn't have that many left. So you know how much he was like, of course not. Nobody's considering anything about not finishing the season. So you know, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you want to play. If you're the Clippers, you want to play. If you're the Lakers and LeBron, you definitely want to play.
You do. And then everybody's coming off watching The Last Dance and getting out watching Jordan compete and all that. They want to get out there. I'm sure everybody's anxious to get back out there and competing. Do
you think the basketball would be good? Do you think it would be it would be a regular product, or no?
Yes.
You do.
I think they'll take their time. I think they're going to be overly cautious. I think they're going to. Players are working out right now. I mean, they're in their house right now. I'm sure they're physically digging in every day, finding a way to work out outside somewhere, or finding a gym, or on their Peloton bikes. They're going to be in great condition now. They're going to come in good shape. They're just going to, and then you're going to start playing, working on your skills, and then, practice. Boy, these guys are incredibly conditioned athletes. They'll be overly cautious to make sure nobody gets injured, and they'll take their time. But I'm telling you, these guys could be ready even quicker than they're predicting right now, in my opinion.
Talking with Tim Cavshaw, let me ask you this. Back to the college for a second. Since we didn't have a tournament, and let's be honest, college basketball, college sports, which is going through a rough phase anyway, has really gotten hammered here. Losing the NCAA tournament, which impacts every school in the country that plays Division I sports, and then maybe losing college football, which for the Power 5 teams means 60-something million per team in revenue per year and funds basically everything. When you take those two things out, the NCAA tournament and then maybe a college football season, I mean, college sports is in an enormous crisis mode. A lot of programs in big trouble financially. If you were a high school senior or you were a player in college, would it make you rethink your college if you were on the level of an NBA player? And what would you think about if you were a high school senior who was being heavily recruited somewhere?
Yeah. Listen, I think come basketball time, I think they're going to be playing basketball. I mean, it may be pushed back and delayed. And I think that's, one of the good things the NBA has done right now is that, the G League format has been open, and there's an opportunity for some of these great, talented players to bypass, not to avoid their one and done. I think that's a good thing for some players. Some players out there, you'll see that this year. We've seen it already with a few players that have opted for that. As far as college sports, I'll be honest, Mike, a lot of my guys are athletic directors at some of these smaller schools.
Right, and how are they doing?
They're worried.
They should
worried.
be.
You know
why?
Because you get money each year from the NCAA, right?
Yep.
If you're working I worked at Wagner. So if you're after a period of time, you start building in this money into your budget.
Absolutely.
Because you start counting on it, So you're like, well, we can hire another coach because we're going to get that NCAA money. Well, when that doesn't happen, it's a tough time right now, and there's going to be some real decisions and really some tough things for all schools, a lot of sports too. You've seen some sports already around the country be.
Oh yeah, a lot of them.
Some
and
baseball,
absolutely.
A few baseball teams.
Not every school is Ohio State or Penn State. I mean, not every school has a big, a big budget and a lot of reserve money. They said 50% of the college athletic departments don't even have any reserve money.
No, they don't. Well, and think about it. In the two sports, it's men's basketball makes some money, and football drives everything, right? I mean,
absolutely.
What do you think will happen in fall football? What will they do?
I don't think they'll start on time. If I had to guess right now, I'd say they'll back it up and try to kick the season off November 15th and play until the middle of February and play their big championships in the month of February for TV.
What do you think they will do for fans?
Ohio State is the only one I've heard be bold enough to say they're going to put fans in their stadium, because they said we have 100,000 seats and we think we can safely, with distancing, put 25,000 in. And if they give us any leeway, we think we can put 50,000 in. We would prefer to do that. They said it would be. Think about this with this statement. It would be tough for us to get down to only putting 50,000 in the building, because it would be very hard to cut people out. I mean, just shows you when you sell 100,000 seats every game. But but that's what they said. They said, listen, we take care of the people we have to take care of. And we would take care of the parents, and we would take care of the players, people, and everything else. But we would cut down to somewhere between 20 and 50,000. I think it's going to be very difficult. But I'll tell you this: college football is, and as people probably know, is an enormous television sport. It gets huge numbers on TV. It is probably nationally the second best sport behind professional football. Its bowl games and its playoff games, especially its playoff games, do incredibly well. The Big Ten network makes a fortune. So, I mean, it's a big deal. I think they will play, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't back it up till November. And then, like I said, load up February. I also wouldn't be surprised that the NFL announces sometime wisely, we're not going to kick till October 15th. I think they've already told Tampa to be be ready to push the Super Bowl down to February 27th, that they could do it that way. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, just to back up, to steal that extra month. I really think, I think a big part of it, Tim, as you just said, states, and our state and your state have been hit harder than any other state. They're starting to reopen slowly. Even New York City, which has got to reopen by June sometime, is the last thing to reopen. We are reopening. The key is that we don't get another wave that knocks us on our rear end. If we can survive that, then I think we pretty much can start to come back little by little. But I think we got to survive this second onslaught of this thing before we get the medicine, whenever that comes next year, or I'm figuring next year sometime. But I think the hardest part will be sports between August and November will be very hard for somebody in sports. After November, I think we'll know whether we're really in big trouble and who knows what's going on, or we've made it through the hard part. I think that's how it looks. I think the next NBA season will be fine. It'll be backed up a little bit. I think the NFL season will be fine. I think the key is going to be operating anything between now and November. I think that's the hard part.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is that listening to the president of Notre Dame the other day say that they're going to go to school They're starting school early in mid-August so they can leave at Thanksgiving.
Right. He's thinking they're going to get another wave. He's actually, and I've heard a couple other schools say that too, that they want to be flexible enough to be off for the month of November just in case it hits when it gets cold again.
Yeah, that is, boy. I mean, everybody's got to have contingency plans,
right?
And it's just too hard right now to predict. And yet, that's why I was curious asking you. I do think it's interesting that having fans and having them separated and maybe being a part of, or even allowing family members to possibly sit together. That might be a part of the structure of stadium.
I also think the key is how the first sports come back and how successful they are. And I also think it's just as we reopen these cities now, little by little, and let's be honest, we're reopening them because we have to reopen them. I mean, we can't do this for too long. I mean, we know that. I mean, everybody knows that. So, we have to push the envelope a little bit now and try to hopefully do it wisely. And we'll see. Even this Memorial Day weekend, I mean, the Jersey Shore is going to be a good example. You know, where are we going to be 2 weeks from now? 2 weeks from now, what's going to be going on after we see what happens on the Jersey Shore this weekend? You know, you're going to get a good crowd. Now, it doesn't sound like it's going to be that warm, but I mean, if it were a little warmer, it'd be a better case. But you know, the Jersey Shore is going to be packed this weekend.
Oh, yeah. And the kids can't go into the places, the clubs and the bars, the streets. How are they going to handle that? There's such challenging times right now.
Yes.
But you can only control so much. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Very much so. But you expect so you think the NBA is definitely coming back, which I think everyone does. But you don't think Durant's coming back?
I don't. No,
okay.
I don't think so.
That would have been fun to watch. It would. What's your thoughts process on what's going on with the Nets this year?
I've for the last few years, ever since Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson arrived and all of that, and what they've done, I've been nothing but incredibly impressed. I think they're impressive people.
How about the coaching change?
I was surprised. I love Kenny Atkinson. I love everything about him, and yet. Anybody that's a coach knows the deal. I mean, things change quickly in that business, and I don't worry about him getting another job at all.
No, I like Kenny. I've known Kenny a long time. He's a good coach. He really is. I hope he gets another chance because he really did a nice job developing players. He really did.
Developing players, and you know, like anybody, like a lot of coaches, Mike, and you know him personally. That first job, he proved he was a heck of a coach, but you also get a lot better the second time you do it.
No question.
So somebody's going to hit a home run getting him, and I feel the same way as I watch the gentleman who replaced Kenny, Jacques Vaughn. I'm anxious to watch him some more. I've watched him 2 games, and the last game I watched him, he beat the LA Lakers out in LA. So
you think Jacques Vaughn has the? Do you think Jacques Vaughn has the blessing of Durant, or does he have to earn it?
I don't know. I'm not again. That's we're close. We're not that close. I don't know enough about that. I know the way he carried himself. I think like him. I think he's the way he's doing things. He's proven he's going to get another coaching job. Also, remember he was in Orlando, and that was all young people. And again, one of those starter jobs for guys. But
because the Nets, the net. Listen, you got listen. I don't find this to be offensive. I expect teams when they have a player of Durant or LeBron or players on that level, you expect them to have input into who's going to lead them. You just do. I mean, it's just the way the world works now. I mean, it's just the way it's the way it works.
It is the way it works. And come on, again, you watch we're all coming off watching The Last Dance. You think Michael Jordan had something to do with what was going on?
Tim, I used to sit 3 seats down underneath the Knick basket from the Bull bench all the time. We always sat in that seat. That's where we always sat all the years. Right. And you could hear Michael bark orders to Phil throughout the game from the floor. I mean, get him off the floor, get this guy off the floor, get that guy off the floor. This guy hasn't done anything, get him off the floor, doing it all the time. I mean, listen, they had a partnership. You could tell it right from the beginning. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah, but I also think during that entire show, and I don't know if that many people talked about it because his time in New York was bad, obviously, with Phil Jackson. But I thought he came off as showing people how much is really involved in being an NBA or a coach in general.
Oh, absolutely.
You think you can read books and you know the plays and you know what defense to put in? Listen, everybody can do that. Who are the people that can communicate and get inside these guys' heads and make them play to the highest level? And I thought it was an unbelievable example of that watching Phil Jackson.
Absolutely. And to also be able to deal with a guy of that magnitude. And then the other, crazy, personalities, whether it was Rodman, whether it was Pippen, whoever it may be, you have to deal with, you got 3 or 4 guys that you have to take care of on every team. And one, of course, who stood out, or 2 on that team that made a big difference. I mean, look, Grant's still mad all these years later. Look at that. I mean, he's still angry. I mean, all these years later, he's still angry.
Yeah, and I wasn't a real believer. I was a believer in Phil Jackson, but I was also one of these guys that was like, yeah, I could, give me Michael Jordan, I'll do okay too, and give me Kobe and Shaq. And I came away from that saying, no, that guy had a special thing about him. And if you get the greatest player in the history of the game, arguably, to say that he just wants to play for you, that's pretty good.
Absolutely. I mean,
and that's after 8 years of being together, or 6 years, or whatever the period of time was.
And he got on. He would get on them about playing defense and being focused and everything. That's the one thing that I always appreciated about that team is that team was a better. I always say this: Jordan made last-second shots, and he might be, 8 for 12 or 18 for 22 or 18 for 42, but it didn't matter. He was still going to take the last shot and often make it. But that team showed up and played great defense every single night. They were a great defensive team.
Yeah, you know what? They were, and they were talented. They were built for it too. Jordan individually and Pippen individually.
Yeah, and Rodman, great defensive players and tireless. Those guys could play all night. They never got tired. Those guys.
But when you look back at it, Mike, you think, well, that was easy for them to win. And but one thing that came across also throughout the entire show was, man, that wasn't easy.
It's never easy. You know this. It's never easy to win in any year because it's a grueling thing no matter what. And they never went to a 7th game in any of the finals. Not one time did they go to a 7th game. But you know what? It's still grueling at times. And you could tell they were on fumes. I mean, in that game, in the Utah series where Pippen basically can't walk, I mean, Jordan had to do everything in that game. He was exhausted.
Right. No, it was fantastic. They had great memories, because you're focused during that time. It was a great period of NBA basketball, and certainly kudos to whoever put it all together. A heck of a job. It was beautifully done.
It's funny. I've gone back and watched a couple of these old NCAA tournament games that were on TV that they had on, especially in March. It's amazing how much the game of basketball has changed. When you look at where it was, even in the Ewing Jordan days in college, to where it is now, the game has changed unbelievably. It really has.
Yeah, I know. Whether it be, well, you saw one thing in The Last Dance, and you saw it even if you've watched the Bad Boys Pistons 30 for 30. They had to do something to the game. Remember, I mean,
oh yeah, you couldn't score. They could shut you down from scoring in those days. I mean, people had Knick games were always in the 30%. That whole Nick Houston final, they all shot 30% every game.
And it was dangerous too. It was getting dangerous. I mean, guys were just getting leveled.
Oh, mauled. Pat Riley first thing Pat Riley told the Knicks was, those guys come down the lane, put them in the stands. Put them in the stands.
Right. And that's how the game was going. And it's wild. You watch the end of the game, the playoffs again, and watching the Last Dance. And they win, and the announcer go, and the Bulls win 76-74.
Yep.
It's like now. Listen, it's so different right now. Maybe somewhere, the rule changes certainly impacted it. Analytics has really impacted the game.
Hey, and that game where Jordan makes the last 2 shots in Game 6 against Utah, he took 35 shots in that game.
Well, Well, it's hard to say what he might average in today's game, though.
Oh,
I
well,
mean,
now you can't guard anybody. So, I mean, now when you can't touch anybody on the perimeter, those perimeter guys, it would be scary now because he played in an era where you could actually physically, well, he was hard to guard anyway, coming off that, bump and shooting the two. But, now the three has become, remember, Jordan didn't shoot a lot of threes. He
No.
really didn't. I mean, Pippen shot some threes and he was hot and cold, but Jordan didn't shoot a lot of threes.
The mid-range, it was fun watching him do the mid-range game, playing a little mid-range night in and night out throughout the Last Dance series. It was fun to watch that. Now, his game would be different. Hey, in the 90s, they averaged about 95 points a game, 96 points a game, and now they average 111 a game. So Jordan would get his share. And
well, look at how many threes is shot now. I mean, look at the way the game is played. Look at the way Thompson and Curry play the game now.
No, I know. And how about how spread the floor would be and how impossible it would be to guard Jordan when he wanted to go to the rim.
You couldn't even you wouldn't be able to double him now. You wouldn't be able to make the distance up.
No, it's a very good point. Yeah, no, they space it out and just really good stuff. The game has changed. I missed some of the things. I missed it seems there's a lot of the analytics of the spacing guys out on the floor. It almost looks like a formation as opposed to an offense a lot of times. And just playing a lot of pick and roll. The players are hard to guard, man. The individual, the one-on-one ability and spreading the floor makes it so difficult on the defense. Heck, the coaches would make it more appealing if they thought they're trying to just win the game. They just want to win the game. So this is the strategy that's been most effective. Shooting a lot of threes, trying to get to the rim or get to the free throw line. The value of shots, that's where it is. And it's trickled down, too. You see it in college now, too.
Oh, absolutely.
The three-pointer and the guys just – I was growing up, and now we're in the same wheelhouse. I mean, there was guys like we used to think it was a big deal if they shot 33% from three. Now the average NBA guy shoots 38% now. There's 30 guys in the 40s,
Oh, it's a completely different world. It really is. Listen, pleasure to talk to you. I hope you're doing well. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you.
All right, you take care.
Take care. Tim Capshaw of the Nets, talking some NBA and some college. All right, before we get back and hit the fan at 6, let me get in my Mail and Bernie stats for the days for May 21st, 2006 for Bernie. The later days of his career for Bernie. This is Yankees-Mets. May 21st, 2006. Mets win the game 4-3. Bernie on the day playing left field goes 3 for 3 and 2 walks, so he's on base all 5 times in the ball game. He hit a pair of doubles, got on base 5 times, 2 walks, 3 for 3 with 5 plate appearances, 2 doubles. So a nice day in the later days for Bernie. For Mickey, 1963. Now, I told you, mail that year got off to a fast start. And remember, we're starting to climb up towards June 5th. This is May 21st, 1963. The Yankees beat the Athletics 20. The Athletics actually had a winning record, Kansas City Athletics. The Yankees beat them 7-4. This is May 21. June 5, Mickey breaks his foot. Okay, so at this time, Mickey gets his average up to 303 and his on-base percentage to 410. He goes 2 for 4 with 5 RBIs. He hit 2 home runs. He hit a home run off Orlando Pena and a home run off Diego Segui. If you remember Diego Segui, a lot of you older guys will. Okay, hit home runs off the 2 of them. So he now had 8 home runs and 20 RBIs and a 3.03 average. And again, starting a good season, off and rolling. And 2 weeks from now, he's going to break his foot. And the Yankees went on to win the pennant easy. But on this day, this wasn't, what am I saying? Yeah, 63. Oh, that's right. Yeah, 63. It was 63. That's when on May 5th, June 5th, he breaks his foot. And the Yankees go on to win the pennant rolling away and then lose to the Dodgers in 4 straight. But they were still a deep team. They could obviously handle it. Elston Howard won the Roger got hurt this year also. Elston Howard won the MVP at 348. But he got off to a fast start. The Yankees were 19-13 after this win, and he had 2 home runs, one off Pena, one off Diego Segui.